There are places on ancient maps that don't exist. Islands with names, coordinates, detailed coastlines. Places that entire empires sent expeditions to find. Places where sailors swore they'd walked on solid ground. Places that consumed fortunes, destroyed careers, and killed thousands. And yet, they were never real, or were they? Welcome back to Beyond the Forbidden. Today we're diving into one of history's most mysterious conspiracies. Phantom Islands, lands that appeared on official maps for centuries, guided explorers to their deaths, and then vanished without explanation. But here's what they don't want you to understand. These weren't just cartographic errors. Some were deliberate deceptions. Others were echoes of something far older, and a few might have actually existed before being erased from history. The question isn't whether Phantom Islands were real. The question is, who benefited from making people believe they were? And what were they hiding? If you're ready to explore the maps that shaped empires and the lies that killed explorers, stay with me. Because what you're about to discover will make you question everything you thought you knew about the age of exploration. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Let's go beyond the forbidden. Before we dive into specific islands, you need to understand how maps worked in the medieval and Renaissance periods. Because maps weren't what you think they were. Today we view maps as objective representations of reality. GPS satellites, aerial, photography, surveying technology. Modern maps are precise. But medieval maps, they were something entirely different. They were propaganda, they were power, they were controlled narratives disguised as geography. In the Middle Ages and Renaissance, cartographers held immense authority. If you could draw a map, you could define reality. Kings used maps to claim territories they'd never visited. The Catholic Church used maps to show paradise at the edge of the world, reinforcing religious doctrine. Explorers used maps to secure funding for expeditions. And here's the forbidden truth. Many cartographers knew they were lying. Let me give you an example. The Hereford Mappa Mundi, created around 1300, is one of the most famous medieval maps. It shows Jerusalem at the center of the world, the Garden of Eden at the top, and mythical creatures at the edges. This wasn't geography, it was theology, disguised as cartography, but it was treated as authoritative truth for centuries. Now here's where it gets darker. Some phantom islands were deliberately invented by mapmakers as copyright traps. These were called trap streets or paper towns. In later cartography, a mapmaker would insert a fake island with a unique name. If that island appeared on a competitor's map, it proved they'd stolen the work. But the consequences were catastrophic. Real explorers used these maps. Real expeditions were launched based on fabricated data. Real people died searching for islands that cartographers knew didn't exist. This wasn't negligence. This was weaponized misinformation. And it continued for centuries because maps were monopolized by powerful institutions, the church, royal courts, and merchant guilds. If you questioned a map, you questioned authority itself. Let's start with one of the most persistent phantom islands in history, Hy-Brasil. Hy-Brasil appeared on maps from 1325 all the way to the 1800s, over 500 years. It was supposedly located west of Ireland, often drawn as a perfect circle divided by a river. According to legend, the island was shrouded in perpetual mist and only became visible once every 7 years. Irish folklore described it as a paradise, an advanced civilization, or the home of powerful sorcerers. Some texts claimed it was the last remnant of Atlantis. Others said it was guarded by supernatural forces that prevented mortals from landing. But here's what's interesting. Multiple explorers claimed they'd actually been there. In 1480, a ship called the Frei Mauro expedition allegedly reached Hy-Brasil and spent weeks trading with its inhabitants. The captain's log described a sophisticated society with advanced architecture and strange technology. But when they tried to return, they could never find it again. In 1674, Captain John Nisbet reported landing on Hy-Brasil during a storm. He claimed to have met an elderly man who gave him gold and silver. Other crew members corroborated the story. They all described the same circular island, the same divided river. So what's the truth? Was Hy-Brasil real? Modern researchers have a few theories. One possibility is that sailors encountered a temporary sandbar or ice formation that appeared like land and later disappeared. Another theory suggests they experienced a fata morgana, a complex mirage that can make distant coastlines or ice appear as solid islands. But there's a darker explanation. Some historians believe Hy-Brasil was a deliberate invention by Irish monks and cartographers to attract wealthy patrons. If you could claim to have knowledge of a paradise island in the Atlantic, you could secure funding for expeditions, sell maps, and gain influence. Entire fortunes were spent searching for Hy-Brasil. Ships were lost, crews died, and the people who profited most were the ones selling the maps. This is forbidden knowledge. The age of exploration wasn't driven by discovery, it was driven by fraud. And Hy-Brasil was just the beginning. Now let's talk about Frisland, one of the most influential phantom islands in history. Because this wasn't just a cartographic error, this was a geopolitical weapon. Frisland first appeared on a map published in 1558 by the Zeno brothers of Venice. They claimed their ancestors had discovered a large island in the North Atlantic near Iceland. The map showed Frisland with detailed coastlines, mountains, cities, and harbors. It looked completely legitimate. The problem: Frisland didn't exist, but that didn't stop it from appearing on nearly every major map for the next 200 years. Mercator included it, Ortelius included it. It was featured on English, Dutch, Spanish, and Portuguese maps. Entire naval strategies were planned around Frisland's supposed location. Here's why this matters. During the age of exploration, controlling strategic islands meant controlling trade routes. If a nation could claim Frisland, they could dominate North Atlantic shipping. So countries used the existence of Frisland to justify territorial claims, negotiate treaties, and launch military expeditions. England and Denmark nearly went to war over Frisland. Expeditions were funded, ships were lost, and all of it was based on a fabricated map. So who created Frisland and why? Some historians believe the Zeno brothers invented it to enhance their family's prestige. By claiming their ancestors had discovered a major landmass, they elevated their social status and secured patronage. Others think Frisland was a deliberate misinformation campaign. Renaissance Venice was a hub of espionage and intelligence. Maps were state secrets. If you could insert false information into rival nations' maps, you could send their expeditions off course, waste their resources, and gain strategic advantage. There's even a theory that Frisland was based on a real place, Iceland, but deliberately mislabeled and relocated on maps to confuse foreign powers. Cartographic warfare. Whatever the truth, Frisland shaped European geopolitics for 2 centuries, and when explorers finally proved it didn't exist, there was no accountability, no apologies. The map makers moved on, and the deaths were forgotten. Let's go even deeper. Let's talk about St. Brendan's Isle and how the Catholic Church used phantom islands to control belief. St. Brendan was an Irish monk who lived in the 6th century. According to legend, he and a group of monks sailed west across the Atlantic in search of the Isle of the Blessed, a paradise promised by God. The story, known as the Navigatio Sancti Brendani, became one of the most popular tales in medieval Europe. The text described fantastical encounters, islands of fire, floating crystal pillars, sea monsters, and finally, a lush paradise where Brendan spoke with angels. The church promoted this story as religious truth, and cartographers began placing St. Brendan's Isle on maps. For over 1,000 years, St. Brendan's Isle appeared on official charts. It was usually drawn somewhere in the Atlantic, west of Ireland, or near the Canary Islands. Spanish and Portuguese explorers actively searched for it during the 15th and 16th centuries. But here's the forbidden truth. The church knew it was a myth. They knew the Navigatio was allegory, not history. But they allowed, even encouraged, the belief because it served a purpose. If paradise existed in the physical world, Beyond known lands, it justified missionary expeditions. It justified colonization. It gave divine sanction to conquest. If God's chosen land was out there, then exploring, claiming, and converting was holy work. St. Brendan's Isle wasn't just a phantom island, it was a tool of religious imperialism. Think about the psychological manipulation involved. Sailors believed they were searching for a divine paradise. They risked their lives, endured starvation, disease, and shipwreck, all for a place the church knew didn't exist. And when they failed to find it, they blamed themselves, not the maps. This is how institutional power works. Control the narrative. Control reality. If you can make people believe in a place, you can make them do anything to reach it. And the death toll, uncounted. Because no one kept records of the sailors lost searching for religious fantasies. Now we move into more recent history. Because phantom islands aren't just medieval myths, they existed well into the modern era, and some might have been deliberately erased. Bermeja was an island supposedly located in the Gulf of Mexico off the Yucatan Peninsula. It appeared on Spanish maps as early as the 16th century. The coordinates were specific, approximately 20 Siu-Sekuduk 33 N, 91 Degrontu 22 W. The island was described as small but strategically important. For centuries, Bermeja was treated as real. It was referenced in treaties. It was used to define maritime borders between nations. It was a fixed point in international law. Then in 1997, Mexico tried to use Bermeja to extend its territorial waters and secure oil drilling rights in the Gulf. There was just one problem. When they sent surveyors to confirm the island's location, it wasn't there. Satellite imagery showed nothing. Sonar scans found no underwater structures. Ships searched the area repeatedly. Bermeja had vanished. The Mexican government launched an investigation. How does an island that existed for 400 years suddenly disappear? Official explanation: it never existed. It was a cartographic error repeated across maps for centuries. But here's where it gets suspicious. Some researchers believe Bermeja did exist, but it was destroyed. The island sat in an area with massive oil reserves. If Bermeja existed, Mexico would have stronger territorial claims. If it didn't exist, those claims were weaker. There are theories, unproven but widely discussed, that the island was deliberately destroyed by foreign interests, either through underwater demolition or by exploiting natural erosion. The goal: eliminate Mexico's territorial advantage. Sound paranoid? Maybe. But consider the stakes. We're talking about billions of dollars in oil revenue, geopolitical control of the Gulf. Do you really think powerful nations wouldn't destroy a small island if it meant securing resources? The Mexican government officially classifies Bermeja's disappearance as unexplained. They've never conclusively proven it didn't exist. They just stopped looking. This is forbidden knowledge. Sometimes phantom islands aren't myths. Sometimes they're inconvenient truths that get erased. Let's talk about the Aurora Islands, because this is where phantom islands intersect with government secrecy and military strategy. The Aurora Islands were allegedly discovered in 1762 by the Spanish ship Aurora. The captain reported 3 islands in the South Atlantic, east of the Falklands. The coordinates were recorded. Other expeditions claimed to see them in the following decades. Maps from the late 18th and early 19th centuries show the Aurora Islands clearly. They were considered real, until, like so many others, they weren't. In 1820, famous explorer James Weddell searched for the Aurora Islands and found nothing. Subsequent expeditions failed to locate them. By the mid-1800s, they were removed from official charts. But here's what's interesting. The Aurora Islands are located in a region that became strategically important during the Cold War. The area is near key shipping routes and potential submarine bases. If the islands existed, they could have served as covert military outposts. Some researchers believe the Aurora Islands do exist, but their location was deliberately obscured by governments, wanting to keep them secret. Maps were altered, Coordinates were falsified, expeditions were redirected. Why? Because phantom islands make perfect cover for classified operations. If an island doesn't exist, then any activity there is officially invisible. Submarines can use it, listening stations can be built, weapons can be tested, and no one questions it because, according to the maps, there's nothing there. This isn't paranoia. This is documented Cold War strategy. The US and Soviet Union both created false geographic data to hide military installations. Entire towns were removed from maps. Islands were misidentified. Cartography became a weapon of war. So when phantom islands suddenly disappear from maps, you have to ask, did they ever really not exist, or were they just classified? Let me end with the most forbidden theory of all. What if some phantom islands were real, but not from our time? Multiple phantom islands share strange characteristics. They appear in legends before they appear on maps. They're associated with advanced civilizations. They disappear suddenly, often in areas with unusual underwater geography. Oceanographers have discovered massive underwater plateaus in the Atlantic, exactly where islands like Hy-Brasil and Atlantis were supposedly located. These plateaus show signs of having been above water thousands of years ago, before sea levels rose. Is it possible that ancient sailors possessed maps of lands that existed before recorded history? Maps passed down through oral tradition, copied by medieval monks who didn't understand their true origin. This would explain why phantom islands persist across cultures, why Irish, Greek, and Norse legends describe similar places, why maps from different continents show islands in the same locations. Perhaps phantom islands aren't errors or lies. Perhaps they're memories, echoes of a world that drowned long before civilization began. They called them phantom islands, maps that guided explorers into the unknown, places that promised paradise and delivered death. But the real story isn't about the islands, it's about power, control, the ability to shape reality through ink and parchment, the willingness to let people die for lies that benefited the few. Some phantom islands were frauds, some were weapons, and some might have been truths we weren't ready to understand. This is beyond the forbidden. The history they rewrote, the maps they hid, the deaths they forgot. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, share this, and remember, the most dangerous place on any map is the one they tell you doesn't exist. See you next time on Beyond the Forbidden.